Welcome to Economy Middle East. Now, recently, UAE has set the technical standard for tobacco-free nicotine pouches, effectively paving the way for scientifically backed smoke-free products to hit the market. Now, over the years, BAT has changed their business model. Now they spend a lot of time, money, and effort in research and development for a better tomorrow, which also happens to be their motto. Tobacco harm reduction sits at the center of this business, and today I'm here to find out more by talking to several experts throughout the day and also diving further into Omni, which is their one-stop reference document with BAT-backed research, also third-party research. I'm Alp Sarper, reporting for Economy Middle East. Will Brockbank, Area Marketing Director, APMEA West at BAT. It's great to have you with us here at Economy Middle East. Now, given the WHO's projection of minimal decline in smoking prevalence in the Middle East without alternative harm reduction measures, how do you see the introduction of modern oral nicotine products transforming the region's public health landscape over the next 5 years?
Look, I think the recent announcement by the UAE to regulate modern oral nicotine pouches is very welcome by us at BAT. And I think it's a step in the right direction, creating a framework to ensure the safety, the hygiene, and the manufacturing of these products. In our experience, a product like modern oral nicotine pouches is a great step forward in driving a tobacco harm reduction agenda. I think, as you know, tobacco harm reduction essentially is about reducing the harm that's caused by traditional smoking. It's about an evidence-based regulation of those alternative products. And I think having put that in place, it will really help us now in the UAE to reduce the prevalence of smoking. I think we've seen this in countries we discussed today, UK, Japan. We've seen very, very significant reductions in the rates of smoking in these markets. We talked about Sweden, where we now have a 5.3% instance of smoking, and they're ready to declare themselves as smoke-free, 15 years ahead of the European Union's target of 2040. So I think for us, the modern oral nicotine pouch regulation is a big step forward, and I hope it inspires other markets around the Middle East to consider similar regulations.
Both consumers and healthcare professionals often misunderstand the role of nicotine versus harmful chemicals in smoke. How is BAT working to reshape public perception and address misinformation about the nicotine itself?
And I think this is probably one of the things that stands in the way of realising the future of a smokeless world if we don't address it. I think, particularly to your point, there's often that misconception around nicotine as opposed to traditional smoking. Reality is, if you look around the world, many health bodies have already said, such as UK NHS, that nicotine itself, while being very addictive, is relatively harmless. It's actually the combustion of tobacco in traditional cigarettes, the inhalation of the toxic chemicals from that combustion, that drives the majority of the smoking-related diseases. Now at BAT, we're obviously working very proactively, and you've seen evidence of that here today, with stakeholders, with policymakers, and with the medical health community, to ensure we can drive that understanding of where these smokeless products sit on the risk continuum, and hopefully drive some sort of regulation that recognises that appropriately.
Now, BAT has a bold vision to become predominantly smokeless business by 2035. In markets like the Middle East, traditionally cautious with tobacco alternatives, what gives you confidence this transition is achievable, and what milestones should we watch for along the way?
Look, I think we've had a very rich history here in the Middle East. We've been here for over 60 years. We have more than 270 employees and 43 nationalities working for BAT in the Middle East. We do have that history, and we do understand that there has been some scepticism with smokeless products in the past. I think we see this as well because at the moment in the UAE, only 8% of people are using smokeless products, and in Saudi Arabia, 14% of people. But what gives me some real hope is that when we look at those figures of those people wanting to make the switch, we see in the UAE, 80% of people want to try smokeless alternatives, as well as Saudi Arabia, where we see 30% of people wanting to try smokeless alternatives. So I think as manufacturers of these products, we have the onus to create a two-way, open and honest dialogue with stakeholders, whether it be policymakers, regulators, or the healthcare community, to ensure we drive some level of dispelling these misconceptions and creating this regulation moving forward.
Now, as BAT moves to a range of new tobacco harm reduction products, what kind of youth access prevention are you pursuing?
I think it's a really important one that we address. I want to start by assuring you this is something we take extremely seriously at BAT. We put in place a number of both internal and external measures just to assure that our youth access prevention standards are met. I'll give you a good example that we spoke about today. In the UAE, we've now launched Velo in a child-resistant can, which is the launch that's occurring imminently. At the same time, we will always ensure that the flavours we use on our products do not appeal to the underage, and the nomenclature and naming around those products will always ensure that it's targeted towards adults. I think when we think about communications from BAT, we always ensure that those communications are targeted at adults. We never feature any talent under the age of 25. But more importantly, I think when you consider the full range of selling of this product, we work very, very closely with reputable retailers here in the UAE, ensuring that they fully understand and comply with the standards of sale. They are understanding of the importance of checking IDs, and we actually conduct training from our own sales force with these retailers on a regular basis to ensure that's upheld. Finally, I think it's important to state that all of our employees at BAT go through annual youth access prevention training to make sure those standards are well upheld in any touch point the consumer can experience.